Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of Not Your Mama's Murder, the podcast where each week we discuss a new true crime case. I'm Elisa Birdhill, and this week we will be talking about Scoop Daniel. I am back with another missing person. It's been a few weeks since we did Bryce Lapisa, so I felt that it was okay to just go ahead and do it. I actually didn't realize just how much I was intrigued by missing person cases until I started this podcast. Every time I sit down to research a case and write a script, it's always the missing persons that catches my attention. I literally had no idea. So I tried to space them out a little bit, and I feel like it's okay to go ahead and do it now. I will say I have seen all of your messages. I enjoy talking to all of you about the Mackenzie Shirilla case. I'm gonna get on it. This case that I'm talking about today, I researched and typed up the script in November of last year. So, 7 months ago. I worked really hard on the behind the scenes part of this podcast for a long time. And so with that, I had a lot of cases already researched and typed up and ready to go so that when I started recording, I could just bam, 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 get them out to you. What I did not account for is Netflix releasing documentaries that would have someone's name back in the headlines when the case is 4 years old. I will be honest, I have not watched the Netflix documentary. I'm going to. I'll get an episode out. It just was not possible for me to do the amount of research that I put into these and type it up in a way that I felt would be doing it justice just from watching the Netflix documentary. Unfortunately, any documentary you watch is always going to be biased one way or another, especially depending on who is producing that documentary. I haven't seen it. I do know that her parents are in it, and I think based on just what I already know, that is a very poor choice. Obviously my algorithm feeds me true crime content because that is what I spend a lot of my time doing and talking about. So I've seen a lot of things. I'm trying to mute them or save them for later. I really don't want to read or watch anything with anyone else's opinions on it until I get that episode done. So my hope is to have it by next week. That'll be next Friday's episode, but I cannot guarantee that. Please do not hold me to that because, again, it is hours and hours of my own research where I check my sources and fact check and make sure everything is credible, and then watching the Netflix documentary and taking notes on that, which it's, I think, an hour and a half-ish long, but it'll probably take me about 5 hours to watch that because when I do something from an episode, I'm probably every 20 seconds stopping, pausing, typing, organizing thoughts in real time. So that, and then because I know that Netflix is notorious for leaving things out, allegedly in my opinion, don't sue me Netflix, I know that there's also an episode of the Mean Girl Murders on Hulu about it, so I will be watching that as well. So my hope is to get all of that put together and put out to you next week. I appreciate all of you reaching out to me, asking my opinions, asking me if there would be an episode on it. I love the conversation. It just was not possible to get it out to you this week and do it justice in the way that I like to do things. So we'll have to wait a little longer for that. Like I said, today is a missing persons case, and it's actually one that I find, I find very interesting. So I would like to go ahead and just jump right in. On Friday, April 27th, 2007, in Breckenridge, Colorado, Sarah Bailey came into work at 8:45 a.m. Sarah was an office manager for a local attorney named Scoop Daniel. She was surprised when her boss wasn't already at work when she arrived, but thought maybe he had slept in because he had attended a charity event the night before. The event was held at a local restaurant and was to raise money for the Backstage Theater in Breckenridge. According to friends and family, this is the type of event that Scoop wouldn't have missed. They say that he was always involved in the community and would help out or give back in any way he could. Scoop attended the fundraiser with his short-term girlfriend, Jennifer, and together they bid on and even won items being auctioned off in a silent auction as part of the fundraiser. Jumping back to Friday morning, though, when Sarah arrived, she found it odd that Scoop wasn't in, but she decided not to think too much of it. Then she found an envelope on her desk with her paycheck inside. She said this also stood out to her because in all the time she had worked for Scoop, he had always handed her her paycheck directly to her and at 5 p.m. on Fridays. Regardless, she went on with her day. Around 3 p.m., when she still had not heard from nor seen Scoop, and he had missed multiple appointments with his clients, which was completely unlike him, she decided to call the police and officially report him missing, which, much to my surprise, the police actually take this seriously and make him a missing person immediately. Typically, the caller would be told that they have to wait 24 hours or even that they couldn't take it down as a missing persons because adults are allowed to go missing. So good for Breckenridge in terms of that. A little bit about our missing man, Royal Scoop Daniels. Scoop is what he went by. He was born in 1945 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Scoop graduated from Yale University and obtained a law degree from the University of Virginia. For years, he practiced with several firms in the Washington, D.C. area before finally founding the Daniel Law Firm with a partner in 1990. During his time in Washington, D.C., Scoop frequently traveled to Brazil for business as he specialized in international Brazilian commerce. As a result, he spoke the Portuguese language fluently. In 1994, he divorced his wife, with whom he had 8 children, and he moved his firm from Washington, D.C., and settled in the mountain town of Breckenridge, Colorado. I'm just going to say it. 8 kids is a whole lot. That's a lot. And to pick up and leave those children with your wife says a lot about you as a person. In Breckenridge, Scoop was a respected local real estate attorney and an active member of the community. He also donated his time to doing pro bono work for West African immigrants in the community applying for green cards. Daniel was an active member of the Father Dyer United Methodist Church, where he served on the worship committee and the administrative council, and he even played guitar in the church's contemporary band and sang in their choir. In her initial interview with police, Sarah, his office manager, told the police that Scoop was a man of habit and he had many morning rituals. Because of this, it was clear that Scoop had been in the office at some point that morning before anyone else arrived. He had brewed a pot of coffee and had his usual bowl of oatmeal, leaving the bowl on his desk. Gross. I mean, oatmeal, gets hard and crusty, so that should have been rinsed. Anyways, also, his dog that he often brought to work with him was left in the office, and his SUV was parked outside in the parking lot. The police also interviewed girlfriend Jennifer, and she told them that following the fundraiser, they had gone back to Scoop's house, spent the night, and he had dropped her off at her home around 5:30 that morning to head into the office. She and Sarah both agreed that that was early to get to work, even for him. She also stated that Scoop had given her his favorite running suit and favorite boots, stating that he wouldn't be needing them anymore. He also gave her a key to his house, which she found very odd because he never even locked his door. Guys, please lock your doors. I know it's easy to say, it'll never happen in my town, it'll never happen to me, until it does. So, lock your doors. After learning this, the police chief, Greg Morrison, started to feel like Scoop may have been nearby but injured, which that thought process does not make sense to me. But because of this, he implemented a search of the area surrounding the building that Scoop's office was in. There were other businesses in the office and surrounding that office building and a river nearby, so they were concerned that due to Scoop's age, he may have had a medical emergency and not been able to make his way back. Which I don't think I mentioned. I guess you could do the math and figure out what year it is and what year he was born, but he is 61 years old. The police chief was able to get his hands on CCTV footage from the ATM at the bank that's in the same building as Scoop's law firm. He sees Scoop on that video enter the building around 5:45 in the morning. On the morning he was reported missing, but much to their surprise, the footage never showed him leaving the building. And just to note, that 5:45 time of him coming in does back up Jennifer's story of being dropped off at 5:30 with the plan for him to head to work. As the investigation continues, Chief Morrison gets a warrant and is able to search Scoop's home, office, and car. During the search, they found 2 computers, but they were unable to locate the laptop that Scoop had carried with him between home and the office each day. At this point, they decided to start conducting interviews with other people working in the shared building, along with bringing Sarah and Jennifer back in for further questioning. In her second interview, Jennifer revealed that she was also Scoop's banker and that he was in a tremendous amount of debt and had recently been denied a loan due to the amount of debt he was already in. Sarah's secondary interview backed this up, and she shared that she thought Scoop had been moving money around and using escrow and trust money to pay off personal debt as well as the everyday office expenses. She also talked about not being able to locate bank records for the last 2 years as if they had just walked away, and that she found some paperwork in the recycling stating that Scoop was behind on child support payments. They also found an eyewitness in the building that says that he saw Scoop that morning in the break room at exactly 7:30 a.m. As the police investigation continues, they eventually get access to phone records and learn that a call was made from Scoop's phone at 7:47 a.m. to 911. After pinging towers, it proves that the call to 911 was made within close distance to the office building where the law firm was. Now, nothing was said on this 911 call. The operator answered, there was 9 seconds of silence, and then the call was ended. At this point, police began to wonder if Scoop had been kidnapped and if they should be waiting for a ransom call. Was the phone call made in secret while he was in distress, or maybe the phone was in his pocket and he couldn't talk? The police weren't alone in this thought. The community felt the same. They all said that Scoop never would have gone willingly and that he must have been a victim of a violent crime. Other phone records show that at around 5 o'clock in the morning, on the morning that Scoop went missing, he made a phone call to the lady who ran the fundraiser that he and Jennifer had attended. When they contacted her, she confirmed yes, Scoop had called and that he had left a voicemail giving her his credit card information to pay for his table from the night before, along with all of the items that he had bid on in the silent auction. She did go on to say that when she ran the card information, the card declined the purchase. When this happened, her first thought was that someone must have forced Scoop to take all the money out of his bank account. Eventually, the FBI was called in to help on the case. The FBI tracked down Scoop's ex-wife and interviewed her. That's when they learned that not only he was divorced, but that he had 8 children that he had severed ties with before abruptly moving to Breckenridge. Members in the community had no idea of Scoop's previous life and were all shocked to hear the news. At this point, please revisit what Sarah said about the paper stating that Scoop was behind on child support and start to pivot the way they are investigating by looking at it as a possible suicide rather than a missing persons. Which, honestly, I'm surprised it took this long to get here. Typically, giving your belongings away is a dead giveaway. We did talk about that in the Bryce Lapisa case. But keep in mind, Scoop is seen on a camera going into the building, but never shown leaving. We know that he was in the building as of 7:30 and at least near the building at 7:47 when the phone call was made to 911, but he is nowhere to be found by 8:45 when Sarah arrived. So we at least have a timeline now. So while basically starting the investigation over with a new outlook, the FBI decided to bring in a forensic accountant to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and that's when they discovered that Scoop was absolutely broke. The $500 purchase for the silent auction was declined because he didn't have the funds. He owed his own clients money, and he was drowning in debt. He had over 20 different bank accounts, and every single one of them were empty. Once this was public knowledge, they received an anonymous tip from a former client. They learned that this client had decided to invest money, so he gave Scoop about $250,000, which who just has that laying around? Anyways, they gave that to Scoop to hold on to until he was ready to make the investment. After thinking on it further, he changed his mind, and when he asked Scoop for the money back, Scoop could not provide the money. For a while, he continued to give this client the runaround. After pressure from the client, eventually Scoop admitted that he had in fact spent the money to pay his own personal debts and the office cost. Ultimately, it would come to light that this man isn't the only client this happened to, but that Scoop had stolen from at least 7 of his clients, totaling over $900,000. So at this point, the community is even more shocked and in awe and left feeling like they had been completely swindled, but they are also saddened by the fact that he felt the need to take his life because of the debt. At this point, the search is essentially called off, and the case is considered solved, and no body is ever found for Scoop. This, maybe it's just because he's been in the news recently, but this gives me Alec Murdaugh vibes. Of course, it's very different because this man abandoned his children. They weren't living with him or anything, and he didn't seem to murder anyone, but be careful who you trust your money with, even if they are an attorney. Anyways, as I said, no body was ever found until 4.5 years later. On December 7th, 2011, a man crossing the border from Mexico into the United States is immediately detained. He learned the reason for being detained is because there's a warrant out for his arrest. That man is 66-year-old Royal Scoop Daniel. He was arrested and charged with 8 counts of felony theft and 5 counts commercial bribery, which carries a sentence of upwards of 16 years in prison. He was held on a $175,000 bond and eventually extradited back to Colorado. Scoop says that he was overwhelmed by work pressure and his dire financial situation and had decided to end it all that day. He said he walked down the back stairs to the office, planning to get in his car and go drive himself off of a cliff, bringing his passport so that his body could be identified. He said that it was in that moment that he called 911 to get help, but he didn't know what to say and hung up because he thought 911 wasn't there to help someone with suicidal thoughts. It was for emergencies. So instead, he jumped on a bus that took him to Fresno, Texas, where he made his way into Mexico. He said he lived a hermit life, basically off the grid in Mexico for the next 4 years. He said he did freelance writing and translation work to make money to survive. He claims to have had no idea that anyone was looking for him or that the warrant for his arrest had been issued. He figured that everyone would have thought that he died by suicide and moved on. He also said that he didn't know how to be more remorseful and that he didn't consider himself a thief. What eventually brought Scoop back to the United States is that he had become eligible for Social Security benefits when he turned 65. On April 19, 2012, Scoop took a plea deal and agreed to plead guilty to 2 cases of felony theft in exchange for a lighter sentencing. He was then sentenced to 12 years in prison and ordered to pay $462 in restitution to his victims, which is about half of what he actually stole. He served out his sentence in Colorado State Prison, and even though his sentence should have ended in April 2024, I cannot find anything stating that he had been paroled or that he was still incarcerated or that he had died in prison. He would have been 78 on his release date. This one's wild. I feel like it's not very often that we get a missing person that is found alive and went missing on purpose and was actually able to do it. It's crazy. I do not find it believable that he didn't have the plans all along to flee, especially taking his passport with him. It seems as though he did this before with divorcing his wife and leaving her with, 8 mouths to feed all alone. I think that when his client wanted his money back and he got the letter about the back child support and then his card declined for the fundraiser all in quick succession, he got overwhelmed and came up with this plan. That's why when he took Jennifer home early and then went into work, he gave her his belongings. That's why he made sure Sarah got paid and took his dog to the office to make sure that it wasn't left alone. He knew he was not coming back, and I personally think he knew he wasn't going to die by suicide. I think that had it not been for him getting greedy and wanting the money from Social Security, he would have lived out his life and died in Mexico with no one ever knowing his previous life, just as the people in Breckenridge didn't know about his life in Washington, D.C. I don't believe for a second that a man who attended and graduated from Yale University was dumb enough to think there wasn't a warrant for his arrest after what he did, which does make me question why he would come back to the States at all. But again, greed. I think he reads as, he's always giving to the community and he's involved in church and doing these fundraisers and doing pro bono work. I think that is a common trait of people who break the law. It's almost like they know they are doing these malicious things, so they do these good things as a way of like, look over here, look at all these good things I'm doing to take the attention away, and you'll never suspect me when all these bad things happen. I did not put it in the script, but that laptop that they never found that he carried back and forth between work and home, it was destroyed. Or at least that's what he said. He said he destroyed it. And that to me looks like he was trying to cover up his financial crimes. I mean, why else are you destroying a laptop instead of taking it with you or instead of just leaving it behind? He was obviously afraid they would find something on it more than what they found on the 2 computers he left behind. Taking his passport is a dead giveaway that he was never going to stay in the States. And you have to remember, when he was back in D.C., he had all the experience with working with Brazilian commerce. So he knew that South America was a direction he could go where he could speak the language, and he would have job security. He would have job security because he can speak the language and translate, just like he admitted to doing. This case is wild. I feel for his wife that was left with 8 children to care for on her own. I wonder what he was like as a husband prior to this. I couldn't find the reason for their divorce, but I also wonder what that was. I hope that she and his children are doing well, and I am stunned that I could not find anything about his release. I actually am going to Google in real time right now and just see, because like I said, this script was typed up in November, so maybe he's done something to make the news or something since then, and I'll be able to find something now that I couldn't before about where he is. Nope, it still just says he is believed to completed he is believed to have completed his 12-year prison sentence. That is insane to me. Usually, even just someone getting out is breaking news. So the fact that it wasn't, and he's managed to stay off the grid and out of the headlines, even just dying. I hate to be that way, but dying in prison or out of prison with a prison record, especially one like this where, there's a whole man search for you and everything, typically makes the news. So it blows my mind that even after being convicted and serving his time, he's still able to just fall off the grid. I guess some people are just good at that. I do just want to circle back to the Mackenzie Shirilla thing. Guys, like I said, I'm on it. As soon as I finish this recording, that's what I'm going to start working on. I typically take about 2 weeks to thoroughly research and type up a script, which is why I had so many prepared ahead of time. I'm going to do my best to rush it a little bit with still, doing the case and the victims the justice they deserve. I love that you guys want me talking about things that are in the headlines. I appreciate all the messages and the conversations, and I appreciate y'all being here and listening. And so with that being said, we'll see you next week.